They said, "Fly out for Thanksgiving, Grandma." I landed. I waited. I called. Then I knew. The airport was too quiet for a holiday. That was the first thing I noticed. Not in the way of silence. No, there were babies crying, wheels dragging, people announcing gates and delays. But quiet in the sense that no one was waiting for me. No arms opened. No signs waved. No one yelled, "Grandma," like I'd rehearsed in my mind a dozen times over. I stood still in the arrivals terminal, letting the weight of my coat settle on my shoulders, my small wheeled bag stiff in my hand. I had been holding my breath since the plane touched down, and now, with my lungs aching, I exhaled and reached for my phone. The first call rang through to voicemail. I told myself it was the traffic, or maybe they stepped away from their phones. The second call did the same, and the third, and the fourth. People around me were reuniting in cinematic hugs, cheeks pressed to cheeks, kids leaping into arms, laughter melting over tired faces. And me? I was just there. A 74-year-old woman in sensible shoes and a wool hat, clutching a boarding pass and a gift-wrapped tin of cookies. My fingers were stiff from the flight and age, but I sat down and texted my daughter. "Me. Just landed. Can't wait to see you all. Let me know where to meet." Message delivered. Read. No reply. I looked up. Maybe they were coming around the corner right now. Maybe it was a surprise. Maybe they wanted me to think they'd forgotten, and I'd walk into the terminal cafe, and there they'd be, all of them, holding balloons and laughing. I smiled at the thought. I waited an hour. It's strange how time feels slower when you're old. Or maybe just louder. Every second felt like a knock at a door that no one was answering. I read back through the messages that invited me in the first place. "Lisa, Mom, we'd love to have you here this year. The kids miss you. Let me book your ticket." "Lisa, next day it's all set. Arrive 11:15 a.m. on Wednesday before Thanksgiving. We'll pick you up." So excited. That was 2 weeks ago. Excited. I rubbed my knee. It had been bothering me on the plane. That cramped little seat in economy, pressed between a teenage boy who smelled like cologne and a woman watching a cooking show without headphones. Still no reply. The airport Starbucks line was endless. I wandered instead into a corner newsstand and bought a bottle of water I didn't want, just to feel like I was doing something. Moving meant you weren't just waiting. Standing still made people look at you differently. I found a bench near the exit and sat again. I imagined how they'd look. My grandkids would be taller. I hadn't seen them in person in nearly 2 years. Last time, Ethan had just lost his front teeth and Olivia was obsessed with unicorns. I imagined Olivia running toward me. I had a bracelet for her in my bag, one of those stretchy ones with plastic beads. I made it last week, hunched over my kitchen table with old fingers fumbling for colors I hoped she still liked. Purple and silver. I thought about calling again, but something had shifted. A tightness in my chest. Not fear. Not quite. Something colder. I checked social media. Lisa had posted a story 15 minutes ago. They were at the lake. The kids were in kayaks. Her husband was laughing in the background. The lake wasn't near the airport. The lake was 2 hours in the other direction. I stared at the story, watched it loop, played it again. There was no mention of me. No caption like, "On our way to pick up Grandma," or "Prepping for Thanksgiving. Can't wait for Mom to get here." Just water. And sun. And smiles. I called again. Straight to voicemail. This time, I didn't leave a message. Instead, I sat very still and looked out the tall glass windows at the busy pickup lane. I watched strangers walk into arms meant for them. Cars pulled up, trunks popped open, laughter echoed. And me, I was just another old woman alone on a bench. People didn't look twice. Maybe I looked like I belonged there. Maybe I looked like I was waiting for someone who was surely on their way. But I wasn't. Because in that moment, I knew. I knew something no one had said aloud. That they weren't coming. That I wasn't invited, not really. That maybe I had been a line on a checklist, a gesture made for show. Something they thought they should do, not something they wanted. And now, it was easier to forget. To let me arrive, wait, wonder. Because when someone forgets you, they don't have to face what they've done. But when you realize you've been forgotten, that stays with you. I stood up, slowly. My knees ached and my suitcase felt heavier than it had earlier. Not because anything had changed inside it, but because something had changed inside me. I didn't cry. Not yet. I walked toward the information desk. "Ma'am, can I help you?" the young man behind the counter asked, cheerful in a holiday season kind of way. I swallowed the lump in my throat. "Is there a shuttle into town?" He nodded. Sure. Right outside, every 30 minutes. Do you have a hotel? I lied and said yes. He handed me a pamphlet anyway, just in case. Outside, the wind had picked up. I clutched my coat tighter and pulled my bag behind me. The shuttle came, and I climbed aboard. Only one other person was inside, a woman about my age, holding a book and wearing earbuds. She didn't look up. I sat down across the aisle, stared out the window, and let the city pass me by. I wasn't sure where I was going yet, but I knew one thing. I wouldn't wait anymore. The shuttle hummed quietly as it weaved through the freeway, and the city, unfamiliar and gray, blurred past the windows. I hadn't been here in years, not since Ethan was born, when Lisa still used to ask for my advice on diaper rash and teething. That version of her, the young, overwhelmed mother, felt like someone else entirely. The woman on the lake today, sun on her cheeks, laughing with her family, was someone I didn't recognize. And maybe she didn't recognize me either. Not the way I looked now. Not the way I moved or sounded. I wasn't the emergency contact anymore. I was the backup plan no one expected to use. The shuttle dropped me at the downtown station. The driver asked if I needed help with my bag. I said no, even though I did. Pride has a funny way of showing up when you least need it. I found a quiet bench under a canopy of trees that had long since shed their leaves. It was colder here. The kind of cold that crept into your joints and made you remember every winter you ever lived through. Across the street was a small diner, the kind with checkered floors, neon lights, and coffee that tastes like it's been brewing since the 60s. I crossed and went inside. Booth or counter? The waitress asked, barely glancing up from her notepad. Booth, please. I sat alone, placed my bag beside me, and ordered soup. Chicken noodle. It was lukewarm and oversalted, but it was warm, and I was tired. I took my time. The waitress came back to refill my coffee and smiled, the first genuine smile I'd seen all day. Visiting for the holiday? She asked, her tone light. I hesitated. I was supposed to be. She paused, as if catching something under my words. Well, if plans changed, we're open tomorrow. No turkey, but we do a solid pot roast. Thank you, I said, and I meant it. After I ate, I found a small hotel 2 blocks away. The clerk didn't ask questions when I booked one night. I didn't know if I'd stay longer. I didn't know much of anything, really. That night, I sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the wall. The silence was thick. My phone sat on the nightstand, charging, but I didn't touch it. What would I say? Why didn't you come? Did you forget me? Was this always the plan? I lay back and closed my eyes. Tried to remember the last time we'd been together for Thanksgiving. It had been before the divorce. Before the new job, the new house, the new life that didn't include space for a mother who aged quietly in her own shadow. The next morning, I walked. Not far, just enough to stretch the stiffness from my legs. The city was slowly waking, shops opening, dogs being walked, holiday lights blinking in windows. I passed a park where children played in jackets too thin for the wind, their cheeks red and breath visible. There was a small bookstore on the corner, the kind that smelled like old paper and wood polish. I stepped inside. A woman in her 50s sat behind the counter, knitting. Good morning, she said without looking up. Morning. Feel free to wander. We've got cider in the back if you're cold. I smiled, nodded, and walked between the shelves. It had been years since I'd walked into a bookstore without a purpose. When you're a mother, you always enter with a list. A birthday, a project, something someone else needs. Now, I was wandering. Alone. I picked up a novel, one I'd read decades ago, and sat on a stool in the back. I didn't read, not really. I just held it, letting the weight of the pages sit in my lap like company. The woman eventually came over. That one's good, she said. Bit sad, though. Seems fitting, I replied. She raised an eyebrow, like she wanted to ask more. But she didn't. Instead, she said, we do a little Thanksgiving dinner here tomorrow. Just a few locals. People who don't have somewhere to go. You're welcome to join. I didn't respond right away. The thought of sitting at a table with strangers was strange. But maybe less strange than sitting in a hotel room alone, pretending I wasn't waiting for a text that still hadn't come. I'll think about it, I said. She smiled. Doors open at 4. Back at the hotel, I checked my phone. 3 new messages. None of them from Lisa. One was from my neighbor, Margaret, wishing me safe travels. The other 2 were junk coupons and airline promotions. I almost deleted them all. But then I opened Margaret's. Hope you're having a wonderful time with your family. The streets so quiet without you. Don't eat too much turkey, smiley face. I stared at the message for a long time. And then I did something I hadn't planned. I replied, "Hi, Margaret. Actually, plans changed. Long story. I'm in the city now. But thank you for the message. It meant more than you know." She responded immediately. "Oh no, are you okay? Do you want me to call?" I looked at the message, and for a brief second, I almost said yes. But what would I tell her? That my daughter forgot me? That I got on a plane expecting warmth and landed in silence? No. So I typed instead, "I'm okay. Just figuring things out. I might stay through the weekend. Take care of the plants for me." She sent back a thumbs up emoji and a heart. It was strange how a tiny message from someone you hardly talked to could feel warmer than the home you thought you still had. That night, I wrote in my journal. I hadn't done that in years either. Not the grocery list kind of writing. Real writing. The kind where you say things you're not ready to speak aloud. I wrote about the airport, about the lake photo, about the ache of being left behind, not dramatically, not violently, just quietly. The kind of abandonment that happens not in a single moment, but in 1,000 tiny choices that add up to nothing left. And I wrote about the girl in the bookstore, about the pot roast offer at the diner, about the unexpected kindness of strangers. It reminded me of something my own mother once said to me, something I'd forgotten until just then. The world will always forget what you gave, but it will never forget how you made it feel. I didn't know if I'd made anyone feel anything good lately. I didn't know if I still could, but maybe I could try. Thanksgiving Day came without fanfare. No parades, no Macy's balloons on TV, no chaos in the kitchen. Just sunlight through the hotel curtains and the sound of distant traffic. I got dressed in the nicest clothes I'd packed, a blue sweater, slacks, the necklace my late husband gave me on our last anniversary. I put on a little lipstick, though my hands trembled when I did. At 3:45, I left for the bookstore. The tables had been pushed together in the middle of the store. There were candles, mismatched plates, and a record player in the corner spinning soft jazz. There were only 6 of us, the woman from the counter. Her name was June, a college student who couldn't afford the flight home, an older man who used to be a pastor, and 2 sisters who lived in the building next door. No one asked me why I was there. No one asked what I was running from. We just sat, and we ate, and we talked about books and music and winters we remembered. Someone read a poem. Someone cried a little. And no one made it weird. It wasn't home, but it was something. It was enough. The bookstore dinner ended just after sunset. People left in twos or with warm hugs and leftover pie and paper napkins. I stayed behind, helping June clear plates and stack chairs. "You don't have to help," she said. "I want to," I replied. And I meant it. There's something healing about clearing a table. The quiet movement of plates into the sink, the wiping of crumbs, the folding of cloth. It reminded me of all the dinners I used to host. All the years I was the one bringing people together. Somehow, tonight had brought me together. When the last fork clinked into the dish bin, June walked me to the door. "Plans for tomorrow?" she asked. I shook my head. "Well, we open late. If you feel like company, there's usually coffee around noon. And you're welcome here." I wanted to tell her how much that meant. That a woman I met 2 days ago had opened more doors for me than my own daughter had. But I just smiled and said, "Thank you." The walk back to the hotel was colder than before. The streets were quieter. Most windows were dark, dinner cleared and families tucked into couches or beds. But I wasn't lonely. Not in the way I had been when I landed. When I got back to the room, my phone was buzzing. Lisa. The name alone made my throat tighten. I sat on the edge of the bed and stared at the screen as it rang. Once, twice, 3 times. Then voicemail. I didn't call back. Not right away. Instead, I listened to the message when it appeared. "Mom? I just realized the time. I'm so sorry. Everything's been so hectic, and we lost track of things, and I assumed Dan had called you. And I don't even know if you've landed yet. Please call me. We can come get you. Please." I sat there, phone in my lap, heartbeat loud. She didn't know I'd landed. It had been 2 days. 2 whole days. That wasn't forgetting. That was erasing. I didn't cry. I didn't feel anger, either, not in the traditional sense. What I felt was something quieter, sadder, the kind of disappointment that settles in your bones. I played the message again, this time, listening not to what she said, but to what she didn't. No mention of the lake. No, "I'm sorry for not checking in." Just a vague, panicked reaction like someone realizing they'd left the oven on after leaving the house. That wasn't what love felt like. That wasn't what I raised her to be. I put the phone down and turned off the lamp. Sleep didn't come quickly, but it came. And when it did, I dreamed of my husband, of his laugh and his hands, and the way he used to bring me tea on the mornings he knew I needed it most. The next morning, I didn't check my phone. Instead, I walked to the park, bought myself a hot chocolate, and sat on a bench watching children throw breadcrumbs to pigeons. I remember doing that with Lisa when she was 5. She used to chase them, shrieking with joy, then cry when they flew away too fast. She always wanted things to stay longer than they could. Back at the hotel, the front desk handed me a small envelope. It was dropped off this morning, the clerk said. It was from June. Inside was a handwritten note. I don't know your story, but I see you, and I'm glad you came in. There's a world beyond the people who forget us. Sometimes, we just have to go find it. Coffee's still open. So is the seat by the window. There was something else inside the envelope, a small bookmark, pressed with dried lavender and tied with a ribbon. I ran my fingers over it. Soft, delicate, like something worth keeping. At the bookstore, I sat by the window with a cup of coffee in my hands and the smell of paper and cinnamon around me. People came in and out. I greeted them with nods and small smiles. I didn't feel invisible anymore. June sat across from me at one point, knitting again. Did you call her back? She asked gently. I shook my head. She left a voicemail, I said. And she forgot me. June didn't respond right away, just nodded and kept knitting. It hurts more when it's your own, I said, my voice a whisper. I gave her everything, and she left me in an airport. You didn't deserve that. No, but maybe I expected too much. Maybe this is just what getting old is. She set down her needles. No, getting old isn't the problem. Being taken for granted is. We sat in silence for a while, the kind of silence that didn't need to be filled. Eventually, June spoke again. You know, I was married for 31 years. He left me on a Monday, said he didn't love me anymore, and moved out by Wednesday. I thought I'd die from the emptiness. I looked at her, surprised. And then I didn't. I found this store. I found new people. And I found that I was still worth something. Even if you forgot it. Even if I forgot it for a while, too. Her words settled in me like something warm. Sometimes, she added, the ones who forget us, they were never really holding us in the first place. That night, I called Lisa. Not because she deserved it, but because I did. She picked up fast. Too fast. Mom? Oh my God. Where are you? Are you okay? I've been trying to. I'm fine, I said calmly. I've been fine for a few days. Why didn't you call? We were waiting. No, Lisa. You weren't. She paused. I saw your story. The lake. The kids. You weren't waiting. You forgot. There was silence on the other end. I'm sorry, she finally said. I don't know what to say. I let out a breath I didn't know I was holding. You don't have to say anything. I just needed you to hear it. To know that I was there. That I waited. That I hoped you'd come. Mom. And then I knew. I knew I wasn't a part of your world anymore. Not really. That's not true. The kids don't even remember the last time they saw me. She didn't argue. I'm not angry, I continued. But I'm not going to beg to be remembered either. More silence. I'll be staying a few more days here. I found a bookstore. A warm place. I've met good people. Lisa started crying. Please come here, she said. Let us make it up to you. Please. I closed my eyes. Thought of the bench. The lavender bookmark. The pot roast. The laughter from strangers who didn't know me anything but gave everything anyway. No, I said gently. Not this year. Lisa didn't speak right away. The only sound was her quiet crying. Not dramatic or performative, just real. The kind of sob that escapes when you know you can't take it back. When the truth sits too heavy to push away. I let her cry. I didn't comfort her. Not because I didn't love her, but because she needed to feel it. The weight of what she'd done. The space she left empty by forgetting to show up. After a while, she spoke again. I didn't mean to hurt you. I know, I said softly. We were busy. The kids had school off, and Dan suggested we go to the lake house early. I thought maybe we could just bring you later. You could have told me that. I know. And you didn't. Her voice was barely audible. I didn't think it mattered. There it was. That sentence. The truth behind everything. I didn't think it mattered. And maybe, once, that would have broken me. But not now. Not after the last few days. Not after I'd sat at that bookstore table and felt seen again. Not after people with no history with me made room for me, without obligation or apology. It does matter, I said quietly. It matters to me. She sniffled. What do you want me to do? Nothing, I replied. That's the thing, Lisa. I don't want you to do anything anymore. I want you to mean it. I want you to invite me because you want me there. Not because it's what people are supposed to do. I won't be the decoration on your holidays. She was quiet. I don't know how to fix this, she admitted. I don't think you do, I agreed. And that's okay. I just need you to know that I'm not sitting in that airport anymore. I was going to drive out tomorrow. Lisa, I interrupted gently. I'm not coming. Even for the kids? My heart pinched. She knew that was the softest part of me. My grandkids. I love them, I said. And I hope someday they'll want to know me. Not just because I send birthday cards or knit them things, but because they remember how I made them feel. But that has to come from you first. You have to show them that I matter. She started crying again. I need time, she whispered. So do I. We said goodbye quietly. And when I hung up, I didn't feel shattered. I felt still, like the dust had finally settled, and I could see the shape of things clearly. I stayed in the city 3 more days. Each morning, I went to the bookstore, drank coffee with June, and helped restock shelves. I met the sisters again, the ones from the Thanksgiving dinner, and we sat together, swapping stories. They invited me to their apartment for board games. I lost terribly, but laughed more than I had in years. On Sunday, I mailed a postcard to Margaret. Still here. Found warmth where I least expected it. Tell the roses I'll be home soon. I didn't say when. I didn't need to. That night, I found a little restaurant tucked into an alley with fairy lights strung from the awning. I ordered pasta and wine. Ate alone. Not lonely. Just present. 2 women beside me struck up conversation. They asked where I was from. I told them. They asked if I was visiting family. I paused. No, I said. Not this time. They didn't press. Just nodded. We talked about books. Movies. The kind of red wine that makes your cheeks warm. I offered to take their photo. They took mine too. Later, I looked at that photo. Me, in a dim restaurant corner. A small smile. A glass in hand. Wrinkles unhidden. No makeup tricks. Just me. And I thought, I recognize her. For the first time in years, I recognized myself. On my last day in the city, I returned to the bookstore to say goodbye. June hugged me longer than I expected. Will you come back? She asked. I think so, I said. Maybe not for a holiday. Maybe just to be here. Well, she said, handing me a small wrapped bundle. Next time, coffee's on me. I opened it back at the hotel. Inside was a tiny journal, handbound, with a note inside. Write it all down. Not for them. For you. You've lived too much to carry it all silently. I smiled, ran my hand over the cover, and for the first time in a long time, I felt like I had a next chapter. At the airport, no one was waiting for me. And that was okay. I boarded my flight with a scarf around my neck, a tin of leftover cookies in my bag, and a heart less heavy. In the seat beside me was a young man, maybe in his early 20s. He offered to lift my bag into the overhead for me. I let him. Flying home, he asked. Yes, I said. Then, after a pause, in a way, he smiled. I'm heading to see my grandma. Haven't seen her in years. I looked at him. Don't forget her, I said softly. He blinked. I won't. I hoped he meant it. The plane took off, and I watched the city grow small beneath me. I thought of June, the lavender, the laughter, the long silence with Lisa that finally gave me clarity. And I thought of the bench, the one where I waited. And I thought never again. When I got home, the house greeted me like it always did, quiet, still mine. The radiator hissed with familiar protest. The mail was stuffed tight into the slot, and my little fern on the kitchen windowsill was hanging on by a thread. I watered it gently, murmuring apologies to no one in particular. Margaret had tried. But plants need more than water, they need attention. Like people. I left my suitcase by the door and took off my coat. I stood there for a moment, letting the silence surround me. And then I smiled. Because for the first time, that silence didn't feel like a punishment. It didn't feel like abandonment. It felt like peace. I wasn't waiting anymore. Over the next few days, I settled into a rhythm. I baked bread, not because I had to feed anyone, but because I wanted my house to smell like something warm. I walked down to the library and signed up for a memoir workshop. I returned overdue books I hadn't even realized were still on my shelf. I stopped by the community center bulletin board and took down a flyer for a senior writing circle. Maybe I'd go. I didn't text Lisa. And she didn't text me. I wasn't surprised. Hurt, yes, but no longer waiting for that to change. People don't always say they're sorry with words. Some never say it at all. Some simply leave room for time to do the talking. I got a letter in the mail on Friday. Handwritten. From Olivia. Inside was a card with a child's drawing me, her, a big turkey, and a crooked heart hovering between us. Stick figures, with our names scrawled above in colored marker. Inside, in her shaky handwriting, she wrote, "Dear Grandma, Mommy said you couldn't come because of something sad, but I miss you. I hope you are not mad. I love your cookies and the purple bracelet. Love, Olivia." I traced the words with my finger. They were messy, imperfect, pure, the kind of apology no adult could manufacture. I sat down at my kitchen table and cried. Not from pain, not from grief, but because someone had remembered me without being asked to. That weekend, I hosted tea with Margaret. She brought shortbread cookies, and I made cinnamon apple slices and lit a candle in the middle of the table. We talked about the neighborhood, how the mailman had changed, and how her dog had finally stopped chewing her slippers. "Did your trip go okay?" she asked gently. I sipped my tea. Not the way I expected, but maybe better than it could have. She looked at me with curiosity, but didn't push. I was grateful for that. "I'm thinking of going back," I said. "To the city. Just for a few days." She raised an eyebrow. "You've got a gentleman there?" I laughed. "No, just a bookstore. A lavender bookmark. And a table where I felt seen again." "That's even better." By December, the snow came. Quiet, slow, patient. The kind of snow that forces you to notice time again. I got another letter this time from Ethan. His writing was blocky and bold. "Hi, Grandma. I learned to ride my bike without training wheels. Mom said you were traveling. I hope I see you soon. I don't remember the cookies, but Olivia says they are good. Bye. Ethan." Simple. Honest. No guilt. Just a boy talking to someone he hopes is still listening. And I was. I wrote back. I included a photo of me in the bookstore with June and the others, holding a slice of pie and laughing. I told them about the lavender, the snow, the birds that came to the library windows. I didn't say anything about Lisa. Not yet. Some bridges aren't built in a day. Some aren't rebuilt at all. But children are good at crossing over what adults leave broken. Christmas came and went. Lisa sent a card. It was signed, "With love, Lisa, Dan, Olivia, and Ethan." No message. No note. Just a photo of them in matching pajamas, smiling in front of a tree. I pinned it to the fridge with a magnet. Not out of bitterness, but because sometimes, even the smallest gestures are still something. In January, I returned to the bookstore. The train ride felt shorter than the flight had. Maybe because I knew I was going somewhere I belonged not out of duty, but out of choice. June greeted me with 2 mugs. "Took you long enough," she teased. "I missed this place," I said. And I meant it. This time, she had me help her organize a poetry night. Just 6 people, reading in soft voices, sipping tea. One man cried reading about his wife's passing. Another read about her old cat. We laughed more than we cried. We lit candles, even though the sun hadn't fully set yet. After, someone asked me if I was from the city. "No," I said, "but I visit often." They nodded, then said, "You feel like a regular." And for some reason, that sentence meant more than they knew. On the last morning before I left, I sat in the bookstore early. It hadn't opened yet. June gave me a key, said I could open up if I wanted. I sat by the window with my new journal. I wrote, "This year, I learned something that took me decades to admit. We don't get smaller when people forget us. We get lost in the wrong places. But we are still whole, still waiting to be seen again by the right eyes." I closed the journal and watched snow fall through the glass. Not every woman my age gets a second beginning. Some of us disappear quietly, but others we find places that call us back to life. And when we do, we don't go back to waiting. We build. We speak. We stand up from the airport bench and walk into something new. They said, "Fly out for Thanksgiving, Grandma." I landed. I waited. I called. Then I knew. And now? Now I live. Now I matter. Not because they remembered me, but because I remembered myself.